From Heath Herring's infamous kiss of death to Quinton Rampage Jackson's barely concealed harassment, here are the 10 most inappropriate and indecent moments in MMA and boxing. Let's get started. Former British MMA fighter Alex Reid was used to making headlines in the British tabloids due to his sultry reputation and controversial participation in a reality TV show. Far from being a very good fighter, as evidenced by his paltry record, Alex had to be a clown in order to capture the attention of the public and the media. But by dint of trying so hard every time, this poor fighter often ends up making a fool of himself, like when he decided to kiss his opponent Jason Barrett on the mouth during the traditional weigh-in before the match. This particularly obscene gesture obviously did not please anyone, and especially not Barrett, who promised to kick Reid in the ring as punishment. But the advantage would turn in favor of the protagonist of this surprising move, as it would be Alex Reid who would unfortunately win the match. Let's just hope Alex Reid finds a worthy opponent soon, who will teach him a lesson one of these days. Heath Herring is the archetypal badass fighter, whose testosterone levels are through the roof. But before joining the ranks of the prestigious UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championship, Herring had fought extensively in Japan, and it was in the land of the rising sun that the young fighter had acquired his prestigious marks. But if Herring remembers with nostalgia those first fights in Japan, there is one he would rather forget forever. This fateful meeting took place in 2005 during the K1 Premium Dynamite, which gathered the elite of Japanese mixed martial artists. Heath Herring had to fight Yoshihiro Nakao, a pretty tough and provocative fighter, but who obviously couldn't impress him. The fight that promised to be epic was about to begin, when suddenly, Nakao leaned towards his opponent and gave him a kiss on the mouth. This gesture, totally inappropriate, had the effect of making Herring's blood boil, which retaliated on the spot by sending a terrible right hook directly into the jaw of the Japanese. The latter then collapsed with violence, like an old tower in ruins, whose foundations have been dynamited. Nakao was KO even before the beginning of the match, while Herring was wondering if he had not hit the vicious man a little too hard. Fortunately, the Japanese fighter escaped unharmed, and Herring, although criticized for his reaction, managed to clear his name. And even if today, he does everything to forget this match, the famous kiss of death does not cease haunting his dreams. Let's digress for a moment. If you like this video, don't forget to give us a like, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell to receive all notifications. Let's get on with it. In Bulgaria, Kubrat Pulev is known as a tough boxer who accumulates titles and belts to his prestigious record, making the Bulgarian people proud. Considered a national hero, the 39-year-old boxer is far from being a model for his fellow citizens, because if he knows very well how to lead the dance in the ring, his boorish manners and his inappropriate gestures with women in private make him really despicable. His inappropriate attitude would finally reach its peak in 2019, in Las Vegas, where he was scheduled to fight Romanian boxer Bogdan Dinu. Indeed, after his victory by KO, Pulev is quickly interviewed by a young and pretty journalist of Vegas Sports, Jennifer Rivallo. At the end of the interview, the Bulgarian boxer kissed her squarely on the mouth, without even giving her time to make the slightest gesture. Caught off guard, the young woman let out a nervous laugh and pretended not to be shocked by this inappropriate gesture. Pulev will bite his fingers off under his boxing gloves, since this salacious episode will have earned him more or less serious sanctions, but also a lot of animosity from feminists and other defenders of women's rights. We can only hope that the Bulgarian boxer has learned his lesson, and that he will not bother young journalists in the future. Croatia is world famous for its beautiful postcard landscapes, but also and unfortunately for its slightly unruly boxers, like Vito Longcar. Originally from Zagreb, this young and feisty boxer is undoubtedly the gold medal winner for indiscipline and total lack of fair play. Indeed, during the European Championships, held in his hometown in 2014, the Croatian boxer had shown extremely inappropriate and shocking behavior. While he was fighting the second round of a fight against the Lithuanian Algirdas Banulis, the referee decided for a reason that escapes us, to stop the fight in favor of the Lithuanian. The decision was not to everyone's liking, especially Vito's, who was not happy about being left out of the game. But the young boxer's reaction was more than a little over the top, as he knocked out the referee with a terrific right hook, before lashing out with a barrage of punches while he was down. It took the intervention of the technical staff to free the poor referee from the hands of Vito, who was furious and would not let go. Fortunately, the referee of the match will escape from his injuries, but Vito could say goodbye to his boxing career. The young Croatian has been banned for life by the International Amateur Boxing Federation (AIBA), and will therefore never be able to put on his boxing gloves again. Which in the end is not such a bad idea, since Vito was clearly not made for boxing, and he will be able to concentrate on a career as a yoga teacher or scuba diving instructor, just to calm down a bit. Some boxers are models of excellence and cold-bloodedness, and we can safely say that Vladimir Klitschko is one of them. This former Ukrainian heavyweight world champion has always shown exemplary calm and concentration before his matches, never letting himself be distracted by anything. Vladimir managed to keep his legendary phlegm, even when he was disrespected by disrespectful opponents. But when he was spat upon by the English boxer Dereck Chisora, just before his match against his brother Vitaly, Vladimir almost came out and gave him a good lesson in good manners. However, Vladimir will do nothing of it, and will manage to control himself in such a way that one would have said that he was transformed into a marble statue. The Ukrainian boxer literally plunged his nerves into a refrigerator, offering the best example of self-control that many fighters should learn from. An example that is all the more striking when you know the final outcome of his brother's match against Chisora, as the latter was soundly beaten. The sexiest MMA league is certainly the lingerie fighting championships, where you can find gorgeous and pulpy fighters, like the gorgeous Shelly de Silva. But if this pretty wrestler is a talented and relentless fighter, she is not an example of sporting virtue. So when she fought Ali Parks, de Silva didn't hesitate to spit in her face, showing how little respect and consideration she had for the young woman. Her reputation is well known, as she had already bitten one of her opponents during a match, without feeling the slightest regret afterwards. De Silva embodies this sexy but provocative fighter, who uses the most sadistic techniques without any qualms. And while these bad manners are largely debatable, the buxom fighter still has a solid fanbase and admirers. Meet Michael Blair. For those who don't know him yet, he's a 23-year-old American MMA fighter who hopes to one day become the ultimate champion. This young wrestler is ready to do anything to win, in order to proudly show off his victory in front of the cameras. But just as he had won a tough fight against his opponent Kiran Ashia, and was enjoying his moment of glory, Michael Blair was stolen by a ring girl. The latter decided to stand right in front of the young fighter, at the very moment when the flashes of the cameras crackled. Blair will not let her do so, and will push the young woman aside, without rushing her, it is true. But this rather childish gesture obviously did not please the young ring girl, who felt shocked to have been pushed around like that. However, recognizing his mistake, Blair pulled himself together and even posed for a souvenir photo with the young lady. So Michael Blair knows how to make up for it with the ladies. Quinton Rampage Jackson is an American MMA fighter, better known for his role as Baracus in the movie A Team than for his glorious fights. But Rampage Jackson is also very famous for his inappropriate behavior with women, especially female sports journalists who have the misfortune to interview him, because the American fighter is a real stalker of these ladies, and he sometimes goes really far in his little perverse delirium. Rampage doesn't even hide his salacious advances and inappropriate gestures, which he commits without the slightest scruple in front of the camera. But the perverted wrestler eventually had to restrain his impulses in the face of public outrage, especially since various sexual harassment scandals in Hollywood have erupted. Ricardo Mayorga is a Nicaraguan boxer who never misses an opportunity to show off his bad boy side, but sometimes he pushes the envelope a little too far, and some of his actions become totally inappropriate. Mayorga's indecency was thus on display once again in 2015, at a press conference to promote his grudge match against Sugar Shane Mosley, a young American boxer who had previously beaten him by knockout in 2008. But instead of treating with reverence the tough opponent who had already made him see the stars, Mayorga was going to disrespect him in the most abject way, by hitting his girlfriend's buttocks. Indeed, when the latter, wanting to pick up an object that had fallen on the ground, bent down right in front of him, the bad boy boxer took advantage of the situation to hit her on the buttocks. Mayorga had definitely gone too far this time, and you only have to see the young woman leave the stage in tears to realize that. Of course, he'll get a beating in the ring from Mosley, who will knock him out for the second time in his career, which is only fair punishment for this big-mouthed boxer. The young son of Billy Joe Saunders is well on his way to taking over from his father's boxer. The young boy is indeed as snarling and brutal as his dear father, and his punches are just as painful and deadly. The poor boxer Willie Monroe Jr. can testify to this, as he had a little glimpse of the strength of the little guy. Indeed, during a pre-match weigh-in between his father and Monroe Jr., the naughty boy had sneakily approached the latter, before throwing a terrible punch directly into his genitals. The bad boy then followed up with a powerful kick, before being stopped by Monroe's staff, who had intervened when they saw the strength of the punches being thrown. The little Saunders has certainly shown himself to be a good son, always ready to defend his father, but he will have to learn a sense of fair play and sportsmanship in order to become a champion like his father one day. As we have seen throughout this video, harassment and groping of a lewd and sexual nature are unfortunately legion within boxing and MMA competitions. Arthur Kalinsky is therefore part of that breed of fighters who have very little respect for the female gender, and who allow themselves to behave in a very inappropriate manner with them. This perverse wrestler was thus caught slapping the buttocks of a poor ring girl, whose sexy outfit had obviously not left him indifferent. This totally indecent and inappropriate gesture on the part of Kalinsky has only drawn the animosity of many of his fans of the weaker sex. Kalinsky will have a long way to go to regain the trust of his admirers, who now see him as an unscrupulous villain. Let's just hope he never does it again. And that's it for today. Which of these 10 inappropriate and highly indecent moments in MMA and boxing impressed you the most? Let us know in the comments, and see you soon for new discoveries out of the ordinary.